What if I told you that small changes in your routine can completely transform your connection with God? Have you ever woken up feeling like something is missing, even though you have everything you need? Or have you ever wondered why, even though I seek so much, I still feel distant from the divine? The truth is, it's not the big deeds that bring you closer to God, but the simple habits you choose every day. And the best part, you can start today. There's a secret hidden in the way you wake up, the way you talk to others, and even the things you think about before you go to sleep. These are practices that, when applied, open doors to a peace and joy that the world cannot give. Stay with me until the end of this video, because I'm going to show you 5 habits that can transform your spiritual life and bring you the true peace you've been searching for so long. By the end, you'll realize that God was always closer than you thought. Have you ever noticed how the hustle and bustle of the world can suffocate your soul? There are voices everywhere, demands that never stop, and a mind that sometimes feels like a raging sea. How do you find God in the midst of so much noise? The answer lies in silence. But not just any silence. It's the silence that comes to you when your mind calms down and your heart opens. I myself have sought this silence to hear the voice of the Father. When I withdrew to the desert for 40 days, it wasn't to escape the world, but to empty myself of it. Far from the noise, the distractions, and the eyes that expected something of me, I found the clarity that only silence can offer. This silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of God. How many times have you sat in a quiet environment, and yet your mind was noisy? Thoughts racing back and forth, worries about the future, memories of the past. But when you are truly silent, something extraordinary happens. The Father's presence is revealed, not in words, but in peace. It is in this space that true prayer is born, not as a hasty request or a repetition of empty words, but as an encounter. You speak, but you also listen. You expose yourself, but at the same time you are enveloped by a love that welcomes without demanding. I remember seeing people looking for God in great demonstrations or impressive ceremonies, believing that He is in the great and extraordinary, but the Father manifests Himself in simplicity. It's like the whisper of the wind, the gentle touch of the sun at dawn, or that moment when your heart calms down for no apparent reason. Have you ever experienced that? Sometimes in the midst of a frenzy, when you close your eyes and take a deep breath, an inexplicable peace comes over you. This is no coincidence. It's God touching your soul. True prayer doesn't require fancy words or a special place. It happens when there is sincerity. It can be a sigh of weariness given to Him, a simple word like "help me," or even a silence filled with feelings you can't even describe. The Father understands every beat of your heart. And you know what's most beautiful? You don't have to be perfect to get close to Him. You just have to be honest. There are people who think they have to clean up their lives before they can talk to God, like someone who cleans his house before he receives a visitor. But He wants to come in now, just as you are. When you allow this intimate conversation, your life changes. Worries that seemed like mountains become small. Sorrows lose their power. And what used to take away your peace no longer has so much power. This is the effect of opening your heart to the Creator. Don't expect a spectacle or a thunderous revelation. Sometimes the greatest miracle is to find serenity in the midst of chaos, and that is within your reach today. It all begins with the decision to stop, breathe, and say, "I'm here, Father, speak to me." He always answers, but you have to be willing to listen, and the answer doesn't always come as you expect. It may come through a serene thought, a person crossing your path with the right word, or even an unexpected event that ultimately makes sense. The important thing is to be open. Sometimes closing your ears to the world is the only way to hear God. Ask yourself, when was the last time I stopped everything just to be with Him? Not to ask, not to complain, not to seek, but just to be. That's true prayer. Imagine that your mind is like a lake. When it's choppy, you can't see the bottom. But when the waters calm down, everything becomes clear. So it is with the soul. The more agitation, the less perception of the divine. But in silence you realize that God has always been there, waiting for you to stop and notice. You don't need an appointment or a special place. It can be right now. Just close your eyes and allow yourself to feel that presence. It's closer than you think. And as you begin to practice this inner stillness, a strange thing happens. Your attitudes change. You begin to see people with more patience, situations with more understanding, and even yourself with more kindness. This is because when the soul connects with the Creator, everything around it changes, starting from within. This is the first step to a lighter, truer, and more meaningful life. And when the day begins with this encounter, the rest of the hours seem to flow differently. Small annoyances lose their importance, and even the simplest tasks become opportunities to give thanks. After all, every new day is a gift. And it is in this recognition that the door opens to something even more special that changes the way you start your mornings. Have you ever thought about how you start your mornings? Often we wake up and the first thing that comes to mind is the worries of the day. Bills to pay, appointments to make, tasks to complete. Your heart starts racing, as if life is an endless race. But what if I told you there was a simple way to completely transform your day before you even get out of bed? Yes, it all starts with one thought: gratitude. As you open your eyes, what if instead of worrying about what you don't have, you chose to be grateful for what you do have? The air you breathe, the body that works, the roof that protects you, the food that nourishes you. How many blessings go unnoticed in the automatism of daily life? As you cultivate this perspective, you'll realize that you have more to be grateful for than you think. It is in this recognition that the heart opens to receive even more. For those who are grateful attract abundance. I remember watching people complaining before they even got out of bed, and I noticed how heavy their day seemed, as if the difficulties were magnified by their lack of gratitude. On the other hand, those who woke up with a smile even in the midst of challenges found strength and unexpected solutions. It's not magic, it's the natural consequence of tuning into what's good. Gratitude is like a key that unlocks doors of peace and joy. I know it may not be easy. There are days when the weight of worry seems greater than any blessing. But it's at those times that giving thanks becomes even more important, because in doing so, you choose where to focus your attention: on the problem or on the solution, on the lack or on the abundance. The Father sees the heart that even in tears finds reasons to give thanks, and it is to that heart that He bends with care and compassion. How about trying it? When you wake up tomorrow, before you check your cell phone or think about what you have to do, close your eyes for a moment and say, "Thank you." You don't have to make a big speech. Sincerity is what counts. Think of 3 things to be thankful for. If it's difficult, start with the basics. Thank you that I'm alive. Thank you for the day that is beginning. Thank you for the opportunity to start over. Over time, you'll find that this list grows naturally, and this simple practice has a surprising effect. What could be just another ordinary day becomes an opportunity to live more easily. Even difficulties seem easier to face when the heart is grateful. Because gratitude doesn't change circumstances from the outside, it changes your perspective from the inside. And when you change your perspective, everything around you takes on new meaning. I once observed a woman who, despite financial difficulties and family challenges, always had a word of gratitude on her lips. She would wake up and say, "Thank you, God, for another day of life. I know that even in my struggles I'm cared for." And it was incredible how little blessings came her way throughout the day, not because her life was perfect, but because her attitude was attracting good things. That's the power of starting the day with intention. Now imagine, if you wake up complaining, what do you expect to manifest throughout the day? But when you choose to be grateful, you make room for the new. It's like planting a seed at dawn. You may not see the fruit immediately, but if you persevere, the harvest is certain. Life responds to what you offer. Offer gratitude, and you will see doors open in ways you couldn't have predicted. And it's not just about being grateful for good things. True gratitude also recognizes the lessons learned from difficulties, for even challenging moments bring lessons that strengthen and mature. Sometimes what seems like an obstacle today turns out to be a stepping stone to something greater. Trust this. The Father wastes no tears, no effort of yours goes unnoticed. When you begin the day with this intention, something within you changes. And that inner change is reflected in the way you relate to others, in the way you react to situations, and even in your own well-being. For gratitude illuminates from the inside out, and that light is contagious. Those around you notice and are inspired as well, and so, little by little, you not only transform your day, but you also touch the lives of those who cross your path. And as you cultivate this practice, you'll find that the more you give thanks, the more reasons you have to be grateful. Life that once seemed grey takes on new colors. And in this state of mind, the heart becomes more open to seeing the beauty in the details, the goodness in people, and the possibilities hidden in even the simplest moments. And when you see like this, you begin to realize that this attitude doesn't just change your mornings, it has the power to change your relationships. After all, when you cultivate gratitude for what you have, it's natural to begin to look at others with more patience, empathy, and compassion. How often have you felt hurt by someone? Words spoken carelessly, attitudes that hurt, or looks that seem judgmental. Human relationships, though so necessary, can be one of life's greatest challenges. It's natural to want to get away from those who hurt us, to hold a grudge or to return the favor. But what if I told you that there is another way? One that not only frees the other person, but more importantly, frees you. The secret is to look beyond appearances and see the divine spark that exists within each person. It may seem difficult, especially when the person you hurt is someone close to you, someone you trusted. However, when we look at others through the eyes of love, we realize that everyone carries their own pain, fears, and stories that we don't always know. No one acts aggressively without a reason. Sometimes the ones who are hurting the most are the ones who need compassion the most. I know that's not the answer many people want to hear. The instinct is to hit back or walk away, but that's where true transformation lies, responding to attack with patience, to indifference with kindness, and to criticism with understanding. Remember times when I faced people who insulted me, who doubted what I said, who persecuted me for what they believed was wrong, and yet I saw in them brothers and sisters lost in their own suffering. It wasn't easy. My heart too squeezed in the face of injustice. But by choosing love, I freed myself from the weight of resentment. And you can do the same. It doesn't mean accepting abuse or allowing yourself to be hurt indefinitely, but rather changing the way you choose to respond. Think of a recent situation in which someone has upset or hurt you. Now ask yourself, what could this person be carrying to act in this way? This simple question begins to shift your perspective. When we can see beyond the behavior and understand that the other person is also a being in process, the heart softens. Pride loses ground and empathy grows. It's like watching a child act out in anger because he doesn't know how to deal with his own emotions. How often deep down, aren't we all like that? There's a story that can illustrate this. Imagine a man on the subway with his children running around and making noise, disturbing the other passengers. People look on disapprovingly, annoyed at the father's lack of control, until someone approaches and kindly comments on the children's behavior. The man, his eyes filled with tears, replies, "I'm sorry, we just left the hospital. Their mother died today." Suddenly, everything changes. What was irritation becomes compassion. And that's the key. We don't always know what the other person is going through. To see God in others is not to ignore human failings, but to choose to see beyond them. It's remembering that everyone is on a journey, learning, making mistakes, and trying to get it right. When you look at someone with love, even if they don't deserve it in the eyes of the world, you connect with the divine that exists in them, and by extension in you. This not only softens relationships, but also brings peace to your own soul. Holding on to hurt feelings is like holding on to a hot coal, waiting for the other person to burn. In the end, it's you who gets hurt the most. By practicing this vision, the most difficult relationships begin to transform. Sometimes not immediately. Some people don't change, and that's okay. The important thing is the change that happens in you. Forgiveness is not about justifying the other person's mistake. It is about freeing yourself from the weight that binds you to the past. How often have you carried old anger that only hurt you? What if today you decided to let it go? Not for the other person, but for yourself. Imagine the ease of not having to revisit that pain. And this compassionate gaze isn't just for those who hurt you. It's also for those who cross your path every day, the hurried attendant, the impatient driver, the colleague who seems distant. Everyone has a story, a universe of experiences that shape their attitudes. If you choose to look beyond the surface, you will discover that love can be a bridge that connects even the most closed hearts. Sometimes a smile, a kind word, or simply a welcoming look makes all the difference. You may be thinking, but what if the person doesn't change? Well, let me tell you, real change starts with you. By acting with love and compassion, you plant seeds. Some bloom quickly, others take time, and in some cases, you may never see the fruit of that kindness. But it is there, and more than in the other person, it grows in you. Your peace should not depend on the attitude of others, but on the choice you make not to carry what weighs you down. Loving others, even in the most difficult times, is a way that requires courage. But it is also the way that brings true freedom. And as you cultivate this habit of seeing God in others, you'll find that it not only improves your relationships, but also reflects how you see yourself. For in recognizing the divine spark in others, you begin to see that light within yourself. And in that recognition, life takes on a new ease. Relationships become more sincere, conflicts lose their power, and the heart, previously full of defenses, opens to experience the beauty of simply being. Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night with a mind full of thoughts that just won't stop? Worries about tomorrow, situations you can't control, or words you've heard that keep echoing in your head? It's like carrying a heavy backpack that you never want to take off your back. Now tell me, what has this burden done to you? How often has fear of the future or anxiety about what might happen prevented you from living in the present? I've seen many troubled hearts full of fear and anxiety, people who, in spite of their best efforts, still clung to worries that only robbed them of peace. And I tell you with love, carrying the weight of the world alone is like rowing against a current that never stops. But there is an easier way, a way of living where worries don't overwhelm you. That way is trust in the Father, not the kind you say out loud, but the kind that comes from the heart and teaches you to let go of what you can't control. When I looked at the fields and saw the lilies growing effortlessly without worrying about what to wear and watched the birds being fed by the Father without storing food, I realized the simple lesson that life offers. Nature trusts. And what about you? Why do you doubt that you will be provided for? If the Creator provides for even the smallest bird, wouldn't He do even more for you, His beloved creation? It's easy to forget this when problems seem big. But it is in those moments that you are invited to trust even more. Letting go doesn't mean giving up or ignoring responsibility. It's understanding that there are limits to how far you can go. Some things are within your control, your choices, your attitudes, your words. But there are others that are part of the flow of life and God's timing. If you've already done what you can, why worry? Imagine a seed that once planted is dug up every day to see if it is growing. That's what worries do. They dig up the peace that could flourish if you just trusted the process. I knew a man who spent sleepless nights worrying about losing his job. His mind was filled with bad scenarios, and he kept anticipating problems that hadn't even happened. One day, exhausted, he decided to turn his anxiety over to God. He did what he could, but decided to let go of his fear. Strangely, the next day he received an even better offer than he had expected. This was no coincidence. When you let go, you allow the Father to work. But as long as you hold on to fear, you block the way to the solutions that life wants to offer you. How often have you worried about something that never happened? The mind has the ability to create stories that are often worse than reality. And even if the worst does happen, worrying about it doesn't stop it. It just makes you suffer twice. So why worry about what may never come? To live lightly is not to deny challenges, but to choose not to be overwhelmed by them. It's like being on a boat in the middle of a storm, but knowing that an invisible hand is guiding the rudder. Surrendering your worries to the Father is an act of humility. It's recognizing that you don't have all the answers, but trusting in the one who does. Sometimes pride makes us want to control everything, as if security lies in having all the certainties. But true security is in trust. It's looking up to the sky and saying, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I know I'm not alone. That surrender is liberating. It's like letting go of a weight that was preventing you from taking a deep breath. And it's not just the big problems. Sometimes it's the little worries that, when they pile up, rob us of peace the most. A crossed word you heard, a delay that changed your plans, a situation that got out of hand. At those times, take a breath and ask yourself, if you can't change the situation, change your attitude toward it. Detachment is the act of letting go of what no longer serves you and making room for what is light and true. You may ask yourself, but how can you trust when everything seems to be falling apart? I understand. There are times when life seems to fall apart and hope is hidden, but that's when trust is most needed. It's easy to trust when things are going well. The challenge is to keep that faith when circumstances scream otherwise. And I say to you, sometimes what seems like loss is actually liberation. What seems like delay is preparation, and what seems like silence from God is actually Him working behind the scenes. Letting go of worry is not an act of weakness, but of courage. It's choosing peace when fear wants to take over. It's saying to yourself, I choose calm, even if I don't understand everything. And in doing so, you open yourself up to noticing the little blessings that have gone unnoticed. The E, heaviness goes away, the breathing becomes easier, and the heart begins to rest. And it is in this rest that clarity emerges. Many of the answers you seek come when you stop trying and just trust. And as you begin to live this way, you find that the peace that comes from trust doesn't just stay within you. It is reflected in the way you interact with others, in the way you face difficulties, and even in the sparkle in your eye. For those who trust radiate lightness. And that lightness attracts good things, inspires those around you, and creates an environment where even problems seem smaller. And by allowing yourself to let go of what weighs you down, you prepare yourself for something even more profound. The ability to end each day with a clean heart, ready to truly rest. As night falls and silence reigns, it's common for the mind, finally free from the distractions of the day, to begin to revisit moments that made a difference. Some memories come like a cozy embrace, but others appear like small open wounds, bringing grief, regret, and even that voice that insists on asking, why did he say that to me? Or, why did I act like that? How many times have you gone to bed with a heavy heart? And how many mornings have you woken up tired because the night was filled with thoughts that wouldn't let you rest? I've seen it happen to many. The body seeks rest, but the soul remains restless. And that's why I'm going to end today by talking about one of the most liberating habits, forgiveness before going to sleep. Yes, forgiveness, that act that many believe is for the other person, but which is actually a gift to oneself. Holding a grudge is like taking a poison and expecting the other person to suffer. You carry the pain, the anger, the frustration, while the person who hurt you often doesn't even realize the weight you're carrying. Now ask yourself, is it worth it to keep carrying this? Forgiveness doesn't minimize what happened, nor does it justify hurtful attitudes. Above all, it is an act of self-love. By letting go of the hurt, you free yourself from the chain that binds you to the past. Imagine that every grudge you hold is like a stone in a backpack. At first it seems bearable, but over time the weight becomes unbearable. And every day you go to sleep without releasing what hurts you, another stone is added. What if today you decided to empty that backpack? I've known people who haven't spoken to their families for years because of disagreements, years of silence, of pride, of distance. But life is fragile, and tomorrow is never guaranteed. How many opportunities for reconciliation are missed because we insist on being right instead of seeking peace? I remember a woman who, after an argument with her brother, promised never to speak to him again. Years later, when she received the news of his death, her heart was filled with regret. Why did I wait so long, she asked herself through her tears. The pain of loss was compounded by the pain of pride that could not be overcome in time. So at the end of each day, do a simple exercise. Close your eyes and think about the people you've interacted with. Was there someone who hurt you? Is there a situation that is still stuck in your heart? Breathe in deeply, and as you exhale, imagine letting go of that pain. If you can, say in a quiet voice or in your mind, I choose to forgive. I let go of this pain. It's not about feeling, it's about choosing. The feeling may not change immediately, but the choice planted today will bear fruit in the form of ease tomorrow. And don't forget, sometimes the hardest forgiveness is the one we owe ourselves. How many nights have you spent punishing yourself for mistakes you have made, words you have spoken wrongly, or opportunities you have missed? Self-criticism can be relentless, but the Father doesn't want you to wallow in guilt. He sees beyond your stumbling blocks to your heart, which, though flawed, is trying to make things right. If He welcomes you with love, why do you insist on judging yourself? Allow yourself to be kind to yourself. Mistakes are part of the journey, but insisting on blame is a choice, and you can choose differently. Before you go to sleep, it's also a perfect time to give thanks for what you've learned during the day. Even the most challenging situations have taught you lessons. The rude coworker taught you patience. The unexpected event taught you the value of flexibility. The failure revealed an area for improvement. Nothing is in vain. And when you realize this, your heart is filled with gratitude, not resentment. After all, every experience, good or bad, is an opportunity for growth. Imagine what it would be like to put your head on the pillow with a light soul. No worries weighing you down, no thoughts going around in circles, no tightness in your chest. Just peace. The same peace that comes from a peaceful sunset or a sincere hug. It is possible. And it begins with the decision not to carry into tomorrow what belongs to yesterday. You deserve to sleep at peace. You deserve to wake up refreshed, ready for a new day without the unnecessary burdens of the past. There's a simple gesture that can make all the difference. Before you close your eyes, think about the people who passed through your day and wish them well, even those who for whatever reason upset you. It's not about pretending it didn't happen, it's about choosing not to feed the hurt. You can say, "May this person find peace as I choose mine." It may seem small, but this practice has the power to transform your state of mind. And over time, you'll find that difficult relationships become less burdensome, and your own soul becomes lighter. What if you also took a moment before you went to sleep to ask for the strength to start fresh the next day? No day is perfect, and that's okay. Life is made up of attempts, falls, and recoveries. What matters is not that you don't make mistakes, but that you don't get stuck in them. Look at yourself with the eyes of someone who knows you're in the process of being built, not someone who demands perfection. This is how the Father sees you, as someone who stumbles but keeps going. By ending the day with a clean heart, you make room for sleep to be truly restorative. And when you wake up, you'll find that the lightness you chose in the night is transformed into energy for a new beginning. For when you choose to let go, choose to trust, and choose to forgive, life responds with peace. And that peace, that peace is priceless. It's the gift you give yourself when you end the day with empty hands and a heart full of love. You're not here by accident. Every word that has reached you has been a call, a reminder that peace, ease, and connection with God are not far away. They already live within you. Worries may scream, sorrows may weigh you down, but the choice to be free is yours. No one can walk this path for you, but know this: the Father walks with you every step of the way, waiting only for you to choose to trust, to love, and to forgive. Do not allow fear to hold you back, or the rush of life to extinguish the light within you. Today, now is the time to begin again. Draw closer to God, not tomorrow, not when it's easier, but today. For life is now, and the love that transforms is available right now. Take a deep breath. Feel. You are loved beyond your understanding. May your heart find rest. May your mind be still. And may divine light illuminate every decision you make from now on. May you be strong enough to choose the good, courageous enough to forgive, and humble enough to surrender to the peace that the Father has to give you. May your path be illuminated, and may you discover the peace that dwells within you. Go in peace, and never forget, love is always the best way.